Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope you're all doing great, as I always say. And in this video, we got some stories from all over the place. We got Eastern Texas, we got Florida, we got Antarctica, which I've never covered. We have stories from somebody who sent them in to me who wanted to remain anonymous, so I'll refer to him as D. And yeah, if that sounds like your cup of tea, then pull up a stump and let's jump into it. Thank you for watching. So this is a story that happened one time when I was camping. I was having a rock throwing contest with the other boys from the camp by this creek, and somebody from camp tells us that they need us to go back to the camp. So the other boys leave, but I stay to finish throwing my pile of rocks, and I'm just there by myself. I watch a rock fly to the target across the creek. I see movement out of the corner of my right eye off to the side about 2 o'clock. I watch the rock land, turn and direct my attention towards the movement that I just saw. I see the figure of a man making its way toward me through the woods on the far side of the creek. It's completely invisible except for a black line that seems to outline its shape. The first thing I think of is it's like a visual mistake or pareidolia. I realize that it's real and not my imagination as it takes a final large step into the clearing on the far side of the creek. It looks up and starts to take a step towards me when it notices that I'm watching it. It stops and freezes in place, looking at me from across the creek, maybe 30 feet away or so. I throw a rock at it, hoping that it will just turn into a tree or disappear as part of my imagination or something. The rock flies straight through the dark lines of the torso and lands on the ground behind it. The figure doesn't move, it doesn't react, it just stands there looking at me. This sense of panic kicks in and I turn and run up the trail back to the camp. I never mention it to anyone, and I never saw anything like that before or since. When I was about 16, I was hunting on family land that borders the national forest in eastern Texas. My family member had me put up in a stand from about afternoon to dusk. I keep hearing odd stuff, like I heard a noise behind the tree stand that I was on, where I couldn't see, that sounded like clanking metal, like hiking with a pan on your back. Stuff continues to be a bit weird. Typically, I feel weird and alone on that part of the land anyways, as in I feel more naturally alert and suspicious of every noise that I hear. So dusk comes and I'm waiting for my family member to come back from their stand to collect me on the way back to the house. I see this bobbing white light in the distance, about 100 meters out, but I'm not sure, like a faint orb. I assume it's my family member's flashlight, and I get down from the tree stand, and it's odd because the family member is hunting in the opposite direction, down an old path. But I start moving toward the light. I reach the edge of this clearing and stop, and I realize that it's hard to judge the distance of the light, and it doesn't really look like a flashlight. This was way before LEDs were super common, so most flashlights still had that kind of amber color to it, or that yellow color, than pure white. The light disappears. 5 minutes later, the family member comes and calls my name from the path. I join up with them and I head back to the house, and I ask, "What were y'all doing over there with the flashlight?" And he says, "I didn't bring a flashlight." So the other night, my friend invited me out for some beers. He's paying, so I'm definitely game. The guy drives us out to this really kind of crappy part of town. He pulls up to this dinky little country bar, and the place is empty. The only person there besides me and my friend is the bartender. He's really chatty, but in that old man type of way where he just says a lot without saying much of anything really. But he mentions that he was in the army and he fought in Vietnam. Now, I love war stories, so I'm instantly engaged. Apparently, the dude lied about his age at 16 and to join the army and go over to Vietnam. Anyway, to make a long story short, he regales my friend and I with war stories for over an hour, and then he mentions Antarctica. And I say, Antarctica? How the hell did you get there? He says that after the war, he did some work with NASA. The dude's job, along with a whole bunch of other people, like a crew, was to go down there and basically be laborers to help fix up this huge satellite or something. He described the satellite as looking something like a huge building. Naturally, my mind immediately went to all the crazy conspiracies that I've heard about. So I decided to straight up ask the dude if he has ever seen anything strange down there. He says, I didn't, but I know plenty of people who did. He says that he worked with all those scientist types in a base. The base was partly carved into the ice itself, with I assume some type of roof covering it. He said the floor was ice, but that it was warm on the inside, like 70 degrees. It was very comfortable. But the scientists would go crazy. He wasn't even there long. His crew was there about 2 weeks. And by the end of it, several scientists had lost it and been sent back to the States. One day he woke up early and decided to go outside. He saw what looked like a polar bear wandering around in the distance, and he wanted to tell one of the main guys. He was kind of excited about it because it's the first thing he's seen out there. And the guy just looks at him and says, "That's not a polar bear. There are no polar bears down there." And he seems genuinely, seriously spooked. Everyone was ordered to keep to the base and not go outside. A few days later, he and his crew leave. Later on, he heard that one of the scientists went completely postal and tried to kill a bunch of people down there. And after that, he didn't hear anything else about Antarctica. So this story is nothing amazing. It's kind of lackluster, but it's just weird. So I figured I'd tell it. We're doing land nav training in Florida. It was Camp Blanding or something like that. It's pitch black out, and we're in groups of 4. Cadres moving on a dirt path on ATVs everywhere to check on us. We hear the crickets and frogs chirping, night birds doing their usual night calls, and everything seems pretty normal. And then things get unusually louder. You'd think they get quieter, but they got louder. It gets so loud that it starts to hurt. My buddies notice it too. The chirping goes on for like 3 minutes. It seems like it's forever, to be honest. We can barely hear each other or talk to each other. And then, at the drop of a hat, in a snap, it all goes dead. It's a relief, so we're more content than concerned. About 5 more minutes go by, and we eventually find a land nav point. We notice that it's still dead quiet. My buddy mentions that it's usually just because there's whatever predator around. We don't really care. We have red lens flashlights and rubber ducks, which are training M16s. Another buddy asks, "Do you hear that?" And when we start paying attention, there's sure enough a noise. It's like a grumbling or a rolling R sound. And now that we're paying attention to it, we notice that it's been there since the chirping stopped. It sounds like it's in our head at different points, and then it's around us, so it's kind of hard to tell what's really going on. Camp Landing is in the middle of nowhere. There's no machinery or buildings near the land nav point. We get a little concerned with the noise, and we're not sure whether we should continue on or go back to the starting point or what we should do. So we're talking back and forth for a few seconds when we hear a bullhorn that blasts 3 times. Cadre announces over the loudspeakers for all cadets to return to the SP immediately and double time it. We weren't too bothered, and we didn't really care. We felt badass with our fake M16s, so we just kinda half-ass jogged back. Along the way though, we noticed that there's a lot of birds, like entire flocks of birds, are taking off in a panic all around us. so we do get a little concerned and actually pick up the pace. After about 10 minutes of jogging, we see the floodlights of the SP and multiple high-powered flashlights zooming around the SP. The entire time they were ordering us back to the starting point, their calls were getting more and more frantic, and they were increasing in frequency. We arrive, and almost all the lights are on us. We're blinded and can't see. And we hear, "That's them? Just 4, right? It's just 4? Count them. Should be 4. I don't see another. I don't see another one." And we are seriously concerned now. The rumbling sound behind us is in the woods. The cadre tells us that we're the last to arrive. We do a quick head count and get in the cattle trucks, and we take off out of there, leaving everything. The floodlights, the tents, the tables, fans, etc., everything at the starting point. We drive back to the main road and continue at a fast pace to the staging area. The staging area also has floodlights, and we end up having to run guard shifts all night with our stupid fake M16s and radio. The cadre doesn't fall asleep, stays awake all the way till sunrise. Once sunrise hits, we have to go back to our starting point to get our equipment, and everything is knocked out. The tents are flattened, the wooden table is collapsed, there's maps that are in a crumpled mess. We pack up quick as per orders, and then we start heading to another part. The entire time, the cadets are anxious as all hell because we have no idea what's going on. We haven't been given any information. Everything is just in a frantic mess. The cadre seem just as confused and nervous. As we're getting ready to head back south, the BC tells us that we had to leave so fast because of an incoming thunderstorm. Now, none of us believed this because it was barely cloudy. There was no signs of rain. It didn't rain all night. I got scared when I heard the other cadets talking about a rumbling noise in the woods and all around them, and in some cases they even said it was kind of like it was in their head. I don't know what this was. We never got any information about it. Like I said, it's kind of a lackluster story, but it was just super friggin' weird, especially with the sound and how panicky everybody was acting. I don't really know what it was. I live in a small city in Ontario, surrounded by open land and water stretching for miles. Where I live is near the border of a forest, so when I had a bear wander into my backyard one time before, I was surprised, but it quickly wore off as I had seen a fox running down the street in Midtown the next week. The story takes place on the roof of my kitchen, which is an extension of the house, so it was accessible through a window upstairs. We have neighbors on all sides, and the forest is only 5 streets ahead. So, way back in the day, my friends Ted, Kyle, not their real names, and myself were bored at the house and just gaming out when I mentioned that it was cool to go on the roof if we wanted. So of course we decided to make 3 separate beds on the roof and look for UFOs. It was something that we always did at the time, so we made our way upstairs and to the window leading to the kitchen roof that was facing towards the backyard, so there were no street lights to light the area. We set up and we just began to chill for however long, and we did see some strange things in the sky, but I felt if anyone spent all night staring at the sky, you would eventually see something out of the ordinary. Anyways, the night goes on and my friends and I are talking about something, and I'm zoned out on what looks like something I can't explain. About 4 yards down to the right, the house's backlights were triggered, and my Spider-Man reflexes quickly made me shoot my attention that way as I was seeing something move and stop, as if to notice that I had noticed it. It was the silhouette of something with long arms, a big head, and a body half its size. It looked like the arms did all the heavy lifting while the body and legs were short, but because it was so dark and 4 yards down, not moving, I figured that I was just maybe imagining things, and I didn't want to freak my buddies out, so I kept it to myself and joined the conversation again. About 20 minutes or so pass, and we're still talking while searching for strange things in the sky when we all hear what sounded like a growl or like a bubbly sound. Like it was growling, but somehow created a bubbly sound at the same time, like water was in its throat or something. It made other noises, but that's the only one I can be sure of, as I was taking in all this strange information, trying to come to a conclusion. We all went silent and just listened to this thing make noises in what is now the back lane to our left. It made really guttural growls in several different octaves. It kind of sounded like if there was another one of it around, that's how they would speak to each other. I mean, that's what was honestly going through my head at the time anyways. I was broken out of a trance from hearing this growl when I noticed it was moving now, and out of nowhere it began to run from one end of the back lane to the other end of the back lane about 2 times. It did this in a fraction of the time it would take even the dog to accomplish. My friends and I are just listening in disbelief as it runs by again, and one of my friends makes a noise loud enough to get this thing's attention, and it stopped right at the end of my backyard. We don't have a fence, not that a fence was going to stop this thing at this point, so it started running toward the house. I remember hearing the grass as the feet brushed it as it ran, and just how fast that distance was covered. And luckily, the kitchen roof is pretty high up without anything to climb, just flat walls. And this thing began slapping the walls over and over again, with force and aggression. What freaked me out the most was how it sounded like human hands slapping the wall, not punching with a closed fist or even scratching with nails. I suddenly noticed that the situation we were possibly in, and quickly opened the window as all 3 of us supermaned into the window, landing on each other. Honestly, we got up and laughed like it was hilarious, but with wide eyes and WTF faces. I think we were all just trying to soothe our emotions as they ran wild. I went downstairs and told everyone not to go outside for the night. I actually heard sirens wailing not 5 minutes after this experience, but farther down, about 2 streets closer to the forest. Anyways, we like to tell each other the story and basically just reconfirm that we just didn't imagine it. Though I mentioned that strange sighting before I heard the noise, I can't say that they are connected as we didn't see anything as a group. This is a shorter story that happened on that very same kitchen roof facing my backyard. My whole life, I have loved thunderstorms to my core. I stare in awe and get extremely excited as I feel a wave of energy. And one night, there was a massive storm across the lake, just close enough to see and hear the whole storm system itself, while not being in it. It was the clear and starry sky above me. It was majestic, to say the least. I was thoroughly enjoying myself when I swear I heard what sounded like flapping cloth in the wind, with one set direction. It was getting closer and closer, but I was looking around my forward environment when I heard this noise literally land on my upper roof and just stand there, cloth flapping in the wind. I don't know why or how, but I knew it was standing like a person. I felt eyes bearing down on me, but I couldn't move for a few seconds. I swear it sounded like as if Superman had decided to land near you. I know I make it sound ridiculous, but the true horror of what it actually was so mystifying and overwhelming. I had never thought I'd experienced something so out of the ordinary. After a few seconds, though, I gathered the courage to again jump my way into the window and slam it shut. I didn't go to my roof after that for years. I told this story to a few people, listened to many other strange stories online, and I haven't heard anything similar to my experience, until luckily, I found a video this past year with a guy who basically had the exact same experience, except you gotta look at this thing. I'm not sure if they were truly related, but the way he described it gave me like flashbacks. He basically says that what he had seen was a hooded figure similar to what a ring wraith in Lord of the Rings would look like. The video in question can be found by searching for Superstition Mountains and Paranormal Files. I suggest finding the videos and matching the two stories together as I did. I at least know now of another who can relate to the story. This story is not my own, but from family members who were driving from the city to our reservation, a 3-hour drive on the highway. It was nighttime in the winter, and the moon was full and shining bright, so bright the shadow of the car could be seen in the passing snow on the side of the highway. It's 4 people together, just having fun, listening to music and chatting, when all of them swear they heard what sounded like an engine approaching them, and not from behind or in front, but above. They can't believe their ears as this noise gets closer and louder, and eventually they hear what sounds like it landing on the roof of their car. From what they had told me, they were frozen in fear. They all said they each had their own individual feeling without speaking to each other, to look at the shadow in the snow that the moonlight was casting to see if there was anything actually there. But they all froze in fear of the thought of seeing something causing a commotion and crashing the vehicle. And right when one of them built up the courage to look, knowing the possible outcome of doing so, the engine noise went straight up, and not at a fast speed, but at a slow pace until out of earshot. Now with the thing apparently gone, they pulled over and freaked out, finding out that they had all had the same thought to look at the shadow but were too scared. I don't know, I personally love stories of the unknown, and I know these guys as they are my family, and I know they wouldn't just make something up like this. In fact, they would go out of their way to not get involved in anything paranormal or strange. They're all in their 60s now and still stick by it. And if I'm not mistaken, the guy who sent me those 3 stories wanted to remain anonymous, so I'll just say that they were sent to me by an anonymous viewer. But in the exchange I had with him, I did mention that there was one time people that I know who live on a reserve that's like, I think I said it was an hour away, but it's more like an hour and 45 minutes away. That's just my mistake. But they were driving from their house to like a rec center type thing for a dance or something of that nature, and it was pretty much the same thing. Something had like landed on their top of their car, or so they thought anyways, but with them, they all immediately pulled over, and there was nothing on top of their car. And I believe it was the next day, I think the driver, or the passenger, one of them, had told their grandmother about it, and their grandmother said that it was a thunderbird, so take from that what you will. I don't know if the two can be related or not, it just kind of gave me the same vibe. But they did say that they were super scared and they immediately just stopped talking and were staring straight ahead until the driver just thought, I can't take this anymore, I have to pull over. And after they kept driving again, I believe that they had no other issues, but I think they had like scratch marks on the top of their car or something that weren't there before. I don't know, if I ever see them again, I'll have to ask them. So, what did you think of those stories? Did you have a favorite one? Let me know down in the comments. Do you have your own story that you want to send in to see in a video? Then you can do that at the email below. A lot of the stories in this video were found on the paranormal board, and they were all posted anonymously, so you can find the post numbers in the description. So yeah, there's also links to how you can support the channel in the description too, and thank you for watching. I will see you in the next one.